Welcome to the DIF! It's the world's largest online festival of ideas that explores the question, what if we could redesign everything? And we've had 90,000 views, we had 50,000 people join us over the last 3 weeks. We've had hosts from countries all over the world. We've had people from the US, from Latin America, from Southeast Asia, from Sub-Saharan Africa, from various parts of Europe. But this is the grand finale. The DIF has come to an end. Oh. We've discovered the forces that are reshaping our global economy. We've met the designers who are designing the products and services of our future. And we've explored the impacts of the latest technologies on society. So over the next 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to reflect on the last 3 weeks. We're going to play some games and we're going to show some highlights and short clips from that event. So first up on my guest sofa, we're going to have a wheel of guests over the next 30 to 45 minutes. Our Jules, Education Programme Manager at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Circulate's Editor-in-Chief, Joe Isles.
Hi, Seb.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys. Jules, you were at the foundation and a big part of the DIF when the idea was actually conceived in its infancy, and we've been going now for 4 years. What stuck out to you about this year's event?
Oh, it's really hard. I think it's kind of evolved in so many ways, but I guess the main thing for me is that it feels like the DIF has started to self-organise. I think the global community of people who are contributing, who are participating in the programme, it just feels like it's got to a kind of threshold now that we're not having to kind of stimulate it in the same way, that actually a lot of the interest and motivation is coming to us, and we're just hosting the platform really, and sharing the insights with the global community. So that's felt like a really big win. I would also like to give a little call out for the website developments, because I know there was a huge amount of effort that went in taking on board some of the user feedback from last year, and I think the developments in the website experience has been really exceptional.
The website development team.
Hey.
And obviously that was a core principle of the DIF when it was first founded, this idea that we would leverage this community and we'd have people contributing their ideas and innovations from wherever they were. It was this idea of creating a network.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you first felt when, obviously you were also here when the idea was conceived, do you remember how you first felt when someone told you they were going to run an online 4-week-long global festival featuring several hundred events?
I don't think so. Probably a bit scared and had to get my head around it. It was probably Ken Webster, who people would have seen at the DIF, and who is joining us in the room today. I think it was quite a wacky concept, but we had the analogy of like a real festival, and we'd done kind of some online learning stuff. What people might know as MOOCs, massive open online courses, and found them to be, because we're thinking we want kind of some of the ideas that we're encountering with circular economy and at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we want more people to be able to engage with them. But we'd gone through some of these massive open online courses, and they're great, but they're a bit kind of formulaic. You watch a video, you answer a question, you watch a video, you answer a question, repeat, and maybe you have a little chat in the forum. And we just thought we didn't really want our online learning effort to be quite like that. We wanted it to be more like a music festival, and the analogy works fairly well to some extent. It takes place in a location, so this takes place online on a website, whereas Glastonbury takes place in a field somewhere. Thousands of people. Glastonbury thousands of people come to that location over a period of time. There's way too much stuff to see. So you're just guided by what interests you, and you can maybe catch up on some of the stuff you saw online later on. And so you have a completely unique experience, different to the person next to you, but it's enriching, and you can see as much as you like.
Let's get a little flavour of what that's like. We've lined up a clip with some of the sessions you were actually involved with, Jules. So let's see a little bit of what the DIF's all about, has been about this year.
This particular robot is called Baxter. It's made by an American company called Rethink Robotics. And in this video clip, Baxter is working with one of my PhD students, Svetlin. And what you see here is a seamless collaboration between the person and the robot. You can imagine this happening in a machine shop. You can imagine this happening in a kitchen. And it sort of doesn't matter. And what's interesting about this, going back to your point about interface, is that Svetlin isn't putting much effort in telling the robot what to do. So there are a few clever bits of engineering in there. He's wearing a special kind of glasses that looks at where his eyes are looking so that we know where he's paying attention. There are cameras in the environment that tell us how is he moving his hands, what's on the table. And using all of that, the robot is making an inference to the fact that this is what he's trying to do. If that's what he's trying to do, this is what I should do. And so the robot is kind of seamlessly reasoning about what the person is doing, its beliefs about what the person is doing, and it's trying to come up with the best way in which it can make itself useful.
A lot of focus these days is going on designing learning systems, how, designing better schools, designing better tools. But one of the things I'm interested in is how are we designing systems that learn? So if we actually see the student at the center, how can our systems better understand who they're working with and how to best support them? And what if we invert the assumption that our technology isn't, all the tools that we're creating aren't just about helping the student get better at what we want them to get better at, but instead thinking about how would we redesign systems so that they're constantly learning from and with the people that are a part of it.
Artificial intelligence, so often depicted in our movies, our literature, our popular culture as a sort of menacing force, a threat to humanity. Humans in some ways, we're obsessed with our own demise, aren't we, in our popular culture. Is it reasonable to be afraid of some of the things you're talking about in terms of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, sure. There's many things to be afraid about with it. Much of it is being deployed against us in the form of commercial uses that do not align with our own interests. And here's the trick with machine learning. Machine learning learns from data that we feed it. You give it lots and lots of health records, and it learns from those health records and so forth. But the data that we feed it inevitably reflects human biases. And so what it learns is very likely going to repeat and maybe amplify those biases. And there's a lot of work being done on that issue now because it's a very real issue.
So in that little clip reel, we had Ram, who's talking about robots and why the robot vision may be a good thing. We had Sandy Spiker in a session, will automation spell the end of education as we know it? And we had David Weinberger talking about how humans can thrive when our machines are smarter than us. So I encourage all our audience members to check those out on demand. Jules, you were a part of that automation education session, which was special because for the first time it brought together three people, Todd Rose, Sandy Spiker and Ulrich Christensen, into conversation for the first time.
Yeah. I was really excited about that combination of people because they were bringing very different perspectives on the topic of where the learning systems are going and how learning is going to be changing over the next 20 years. And I really loved what Todd was saying about the role that education can play in individuals reshaping their lives. And he talked about the research that he was doing for his new book, Dark Horse, which was looking at the role that purpose and a sense of purpose plays in education today. Because the social contract has been broken, people aren't going to higher educational institutions necessarily because there's a guarantee of a job, but rather they're getting educated because they want to be doing something that has a sense of meaning or purpose behind that career path. So that was a real takeaway for me from that session. But I also really enjoyed the whole piece that Ulrich brought in around how learning systems can actually operate like biological systems. And I thought, what an amazing concept. And for somebody who works in that field from a digital perspective, it felt like he was really making progress on the tools that exist today to make that sort of vision a reality.
And will automation spell the end of education as we know it?
Absolutely, and I think it's a good thing. I think education needs to catch up with the 21st century. Bring it on.
So we also had this session, I mean, we're looking at automation and AI and the impact of these things at so many different angles across the DIF. And you were also on, of course, the session with Ram, Professor at University of Edinburgh. I'm not going to try and say his full name, as you did really well in that session. Yes, exactly, it was fantastic. What was your big takeaway from that session? He's very optimistic about the future of...
He was optimistic, and I kind of wished I'd pressed him more on some of the issues that surround his field of study. But for me, he ended on talking about the role of robots and AI in whole systems. We were talking about transportation systems, and we often look at individual robotics and artificial intelligence used from a kind of product perspective, but actually he was really moving that into how that can start to create whole systems that are intelligent. And, from a transport perspective, how whole transport systems within cities can be revolutionised using robotics and AI, which for me was a really interesting step, and of course plays to a lot of our conversations around going beyond just a product perspective into a whole system level thinking.
Definitely 2 sessions to check out.
Yep.
Joe, what have you been up to during the DIF? Earlier today, I know you hosted the circular design case finale. What's the circular design case if people have not caught up with it?
Well, they can get it on DIF on demand, and that will probably give a much better explanation than I'm about to. But essentially, it's the first time we've done it. It's a chance for people to put their circular design thinking into action. So it ran for 10 days over the course of the DIF. And circular design, for people that don't know, earlier this year, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation IDEO released a circular design guide. So effectively talking about merging aspects of the circular economy and design thinking, and answering this question that a lot of people are asking now is, how do you actually design something that's fit for a circular economy? Which is not a straightforward answer. It needs a lot of exploration, and the circular design guide is the place that people can get started with that. And then so the case was a 10-day challenge to actually do that. And we weren't asking people to prototype something or make a model or anything like that. It was to map the system around an everyday product. So people took kind of plastic bottles and yoga pants and things like that, and mapped the system of around that product, rather than it's just take, make, dispose. There's a lot more going on there, and they're finding circular opportunities in there. And the winner won £1,000, which was pretty cool.
If only you could have entered, Joe, eh?
Yeah, but if people watched the first, the kickoff in week 1, they saw some of my potential entries, and they were terrible. So even if I had been able to enter, I think I would have come last.
And we had quite a few entries, right? There was a very good standard. They're definitely worth checking out on hashtag circular design case, where you can see where all the entries come from.
Sure.
You were also on stage at the DIF Live launch. It feels like a million years ago. It's only 3 weeks ago. What was it like being on stage with those big hitters? Any big takeaways from your side? I
think the best part about that was that it was pretty hardcore economics.
Hardcore economics was the best thing that was about that.
Well, that does sound. I mean, does sound a bit off. I get that, but the Paradise Papers came out that day. So Anne Pettifor, who she's a bit of a I guess a renegade economist, but is from that world, was able to comment on the significance of the Paradise Papers alongside this theme of the DIF around 21st century economics. And then Tim Harford as well kind of complemented that, and Mark Stevenson, which was really the more kind of optimistic view of how we can ask what the economy is actually for, and we can shape it to achieve those goals.
Yeah, so we had Anne Pettifor as this money, debt and banks sort of expert. We had Tim Harford, who's, I guess he's written all sorts of things about the economy, like 50 things that make
his latest is around how innovation is messy, that when we're in kind of uncomfortable situations, that we come up with our best, most creative ideas. And I think you've done that with a few of your guests.
And then we had Mark Stevenson as the optimistic futurist. So speaking of the DIF Live launch, I want to resurrect a game from the DIF Live launch.
Whoop, whoop.
Sounds good. I love games.
We're ready.
My favourite.
It's the cards against economy. It's the cards against economy. It's the cards against economy.
That's
Cards Against the
fantastic.
Economy.
Brilliant, really good.
There are no prizes for
Okay.
winning or losing this
I
game.
don't think there's been any prizes for any of the quizzes we've held at the
No.
DIF.
Let's go on to our first one. I used to be a... and I recovered. So for anyone at home, this is a DIF title, a session that you may or may not have watched. And we have taken out a phrase from this.
An economist?
I used to be an economist and I recovered.
I've realised that I am an addict.
You used to be an addict.
No, I still am. Kettle chips. They were in the snack box, and I've realised that I'm definitely a kettle chip addict. But so I don't think it can be that.
It's not. So this session was from Gene Bellinger, and it's I used to be a systems thinker, and I recovered. And in it, he basically posits that almost all system thinking can be brought back to the question and. It's really worthwhile.
The question and?
Yeah.
And question mark.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sure.
Not the question and.
Raise your voice at the end. And
Yeah.
That's a question.
Okay.
So I used to be a system thinker and I recovered. And now, what looks like in 2030? This was at the Powering Change conference, first ever circular economy conference held in Australasia.
A DIF. What do you think DIF will look like in 2030,
What
Seb?
DIF looks like in 2030
What Seb's wardrobe
What
looks like.
Seb's wardrobe looks
in
like.
2030.
This is actually the last day of wearing shirts for me for 2017.
You're going to be top. That might be a bit much.
We're not on the cameras, so no one will
We
know.
have enjoyed the Seb wardrobe throughout the DIF,
Yeah.
though.
It's
Seb.
been great.
Yeah.
Anyone catch this one, or should I?
Oh, this. No, I didn't.
What
catch this one.
risk looks like
Oh,
in 2030?
Of course.
Risk.
What risk looks like
Okay.
in 2030?
Big fail there, Joe.
Sorry, Jules.
Is the technology of the future.
Nature.
Nature is the technology of the future. So you've seen this
Sorry,
one, Jules.
I did see
well done,
that
that's
one.
1-0.
Oh, I didn't realise.
It's all about
that was
winning.
this. Oh, okay, I'll try a bit harder on
Do
this
you
next
have any
one.
reflections on that session? Obviously featured Richard McGowan from biomimicry UK and Marco Brakovic. If anyone's seen me in sessions, I'm not the best at pronouncing people's names properly, so apologies to Marco.
It's good you remembered their names.
But he's an architect and designer in Brazil, a biomimetic architect. That was a very popular session from week one and definitely one to catch up on. It's essentially applying biomimicry in various contexts and the theory behind it.
Yeah.
Disrupting the way we, question mark.
Design.
You know what, that's not a bad guess because this session does feature Michael Braungart, Cradle to Cradle concept originator.
The way we think.
Disrupting the way we think would be very appropriate for the DIF, but is not the answer. It's,
Hold on.
well, Joe, you are 1-0 down. So
Yeah,
if
that's why I'm waiting.
With
I'm
one
trying
to go
No,
after
I've
this.
got nothing, Seb. Sorry, buddy.
Disrupting the way we build.
Oh, yes, I knew that one.
So we're looking at built environment, looking at health of materials. There was this session is a video from featuring Christine Lemaitre from a German cradle to cradle organisation that has an acronym which I'm not going to try and remember off the top of my head. It features Michael Braungart. It's definitely a video to check out. We also had a session from Google on the same subject, healthy materials in the built environment.
I think I would have got that one if that was it.
If it had
That was
been
up there.
Google would have been the title, yeah, I think you would have managed that one. Final one. So Jules, you need this one to win. It's in your specialist subject, and Joe, you need this one to decide. So putting the into circular education.
Economy?
Oh,
For
Jules,
God's sake.
Is that right?
it's right. Yes, it features Peter Hopkinson.
I think this was a bit biased. There was loads of education stuff in there.
So, putting the economy into circular education, which is a video from Peter Hopkinson at University of Exeter, where he is making the case for why economy is so crucial in circular education. We don't ignore the economy bit of circular economy.
Yeah.
So that was cards against.
I think if you'd had like
The economy.
something design case kickoff, I would have
You would have been
probably
right
got
all
that
over
one.
it.
I think I would have nailed it.
That's all we've got time with you guys. But before I let you go, I want you each to give me one session. So On Demand is available until January 6th, I think, or something over the Christmas period. So people have got 4, 5, 6 weeks to catch up on all the content. One thing they must absolutely watch in that time.
My top session to watch from the DIF this year would be Kate Raworth's How to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. I think she's articulate, her thinking is really clear and coherent. She's easy to understand, putting across quite complex messages, but it's accessible, and she's inspiring. So I think it makes for a great DIF session.
Kate Raworth's How to Think Like a 21st Century Economist.
I'm going to go with Alicia Garmalevich. The biggest revolution in 3D printing is yet to come, because I think 3D printing it's kind of a bit, lost a bit of its buzz, I think, because this dream of everyone having a 3D printer on their desk and just printing whatever they need is kind of, everyone knows that's not really going to happen, or it's not practical. So it's nice to hear Alicia talk so passionately about some real innovation that is possible and is related to circular economy.
Alicia's definitely is the premier person in terms of connecting 3D printing and circular economy in that materials design space, isn't she?
I think so.
Any last thoughts, Jules? So
Well, I was just going to say, it's nice to see both females on the top of that list. Not a coincidence, boys.
On that note, I want to play. We talk a lot about open sessions. I want to play a little video reel that gives you a flavour of these people tuning in from all over the world and contributing their ideas, their innovations that are reshaping the economy.
Thanks, Seb.
Cheers, Sebo.
The topic of sort of our journey, I think from the perspective of a student, which might be interesting to you viewers as well, is that there's a clear distinction that happens when you move from being a design project within design school to actually thinking of yourself as a business. And this is really what happened to us when Mathieu came into the picture, and suddenly actually not only thinking about why it's a nice concept and why it's solving problems, but also how does the business model work? Can we make money, and can we actually have a viable business? So that
definitely not that products got too complicated. It's that it's almost that there was just too many different products. So it's not that any single repair is particularly challenging. It's not, but you have to have information about the product in order to affect the repair. So a circuit schematic for a board, it's like a city map, and it tells you what parts are. Not every part on the board is labeled. So without a schematic, if you have a part that's bad, you could replace it easily. It might be a 2-cent component, but you don't know what that part is because it doesn't have the resistance valued label on it. So if you have the schematic, the design file of how it was put together, then it's a very straightforward repair. And it used to be that we had access to all of that information. The Apple II came with the full board schematic, and they encouraged people to tinker with it and desolder the RAM and put new RAM on. And so over time, what's happened is as we have more and more products, it's a little bit prohibitive for any one technician to reverse engineer every TV. If you're a TV repairman, you might go a week and never have 2 of the same model TV come in. And so that's something that if you have to take the time to reverse engineer every single product, that time to do the reverse engineering becomes the prohibitive part, not the actual repair. If you had the diagram, you could repair it no problem.
The epitome of the complexity of modern life today and modern materials is a mobile phone. This is the one that no longer works anymore, but it's got a touch screen and a liquid crystal display. And inside, it's got all sorts of electronics and a lithium battery. And actually, this has more than half of the periodic table in it. So of all the elements we know exist, it has half of them, more than half of them in it. But what we haven't done as a civilization, as material scientists and engineers, designers, makers, is make this recyclable. So when this at the end ends its days, we don't get back all the complexity. We don't recover all of those materials again.
Right. So we had there how furniture that changes to fit your life with Strata, which is a startup that's actively trying to employ circular design principles and business models today. We had Carl Wiens from iFixit, who is sort of a leader, I guess, of the right to repair movement. And if you haven't seen Carl before, he's definitely a must watch. So that session was called Right to Repair, a Vision for Circular Electronics. And then we had Mark Miodownik talking a session called Glue Like a Screw. And he was joined by Eric Logtons from eCore, which is another startup working on materials, and guys at DSM Niagara who have a sort of innovation to do with replacing toxic adhesives with a non-toxic sort of glue that's like a screw. Mark Miodownik is sort of founder of the Institute of Making at University College London. So those are 3 of our open sessions. And oh, how did this happen? We've now got on the sofa Emily Scadgel, who's communications coordinator for the DIF, and Kinga, who's one of our annual DIF superstars. I want to get you to reflect on some of your favourite DIF moments, just as we did with Jules and Joe. But firstly, what's the experience been like as DIF first-timers?
Amazing.
Sum it up in, well, amazing's not going to, a couple of words.
Ooh, that's a tough question. It has been very interesting, overwhelming sometimes. Hard work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's a ton of work, but it's totally worth it. And when you see those questions and comments coming in, like, you realise that people actually are watching this. There's people out there that are interested in these topics, and it brings it all to life. It's awesome. It's awesome.
So we appreciate the audience, is what you're saying.
We need the audience.
Emily, so all of those clips we just showed were from open sessions. For people who don't know what those are, and it's a big part of our comms efforts in promoting those, just give us a quick summary of what an open session is, or what's the difference between a live student open session?
Okay, so an open session is basically for thought leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs. Anyone can get online and they can apply to speak. They sort of go through a process, which Kinga was a part of actually, and then we pick out who we think is going to be the most interesting, most engaging, and they can broadcast all their topics on a global stage. So I think the difference here is, the live studio sessions are great, but the open sessions is anyone can get involved just by contacting us if they've got a really cool idea that they want to broadcast. I think it's worth mentioning, that there's 200 hours of content, and most of this content is made up by these open sessions. So I think it's a great way to get involved.
They are the DIF. And Kinga, as Emily said, one of your big responsibilities. In fact, I think you've won the annual Seb Reed Award for hosting the most sessions during the DIF. What's it been like? What's it been like dealing with people from all around the world, taking them through the process of having an idea of a session they want to present? Maybe they're working on something, maybe it's a piece of research or their business, and then trying to transform that into a piece of content that appears on the DIF stage. What have been the big highlights for you?
So I think one of the most interesting days was a day where I started at 9, maybe even earlier, with a call with somebody from Australia who had a great idea for doing a session. And we were talking a bit about what is she gonna do, and how can we make it more interactive, how can we engage audience. And then we sort of, other calls were around the world. So in one day I could jump through continents in calls with people who were contributing in open sessions, which is just amazing to experience.
It's pretty cool. You'll be in one room with someone from Australia and suddenly you'll skip time zones and you'll be in America. It's just the most bizarre
thing. You had to Google time zones a few times over the last couple of months.
Yes.
And Kinga, you're a designer by background, and going back a little bit to Kyle and Mark and Katrine from those 3 clips, a lot of sessions focus on the theme of design and link it to things like materials and our products and our businesses. What have been the 2 or 3 big takeaways from a designer's perspective?
So I think we really went into the essence and into thinking about what really is the designer, and especially because we have design as a profession, and people are trained as a designer, but we are getting more and more designers, and we've heard in a lot of sessions that we want more and more people to be designers, but how do you see a person as a designer that is educated in being a designer, and how is that different from a person that designs product but is not educated as a designer? And I think we really got into that topic, and also really saw the importance of educating other people what design is and how people can learn design skills without being educated as a designer.
Is that you saying that you wish you had not learned to be a designer, but just watched the DIF from an earlier stage?
I think the importance of the designer comes through.
And one person who talks quite a bit about this, actually, and one for maybe for our audience to check out, is John Mider, who we did an interview with him, a pre-recorded interview, Design in the Digital Age, and he talks a lot about different types of design and different types of designers. Emily, you obviously work, I mean, I called you the DIF Comms Communication Editor, Coordinator. You're actually a bit more than that. You work across the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's education projects. What topics have caught your eye? I know you had the pleasure of interviewing Charmian Love from B Corp's Lab.
Yeah, no, Charmian Shah, let me call her Shah. She was great. I came in, that was my first ever live studio session, and she made me feel completely at ease. I'd obviously done my homework on B Corps, but she really brought it down to a level that we were all able to understand. I think for any companies that were interested to, take it up, it made it really clear for them to how to get involved. But topics-wise, probably our theme, Future of Design. I'm not just saying that because Kinga sat next to me. But yeah, I don't know anything about design, and I think the sessions this year, and I'm so glad it has been a main theme, have been super interesting. From John Mader to the circular design case, which I did a lot of work on. So yeah, design's been a really cool theme.
And we've been talking a lot about this, the grand finale, it's the end of the DIF, but of course it's not quite the end of the DIF in terms of actually being able to watch content. What should our audience do now, today, next week?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the end. So I'd say, get yourself online. We've got Catch Up through DIF On Demand available on the website from now. So please do, check out all the sessions that you may have missed, and you can still comment. So we've encouraged our speakers, get interactive as well. So you can still keep that conversation going online, and also on Twitter. Use the hashtag ThinkDiff. I've recently got involved in Twitter, so I'll be picking up those. So yeah, it's definitely not over. There's lots more to come.
So if people want to talk to you, use hashtag ThinkDiff.
Yeah,
basically.
You can speak to me directly just by hashtagging ThinkDiff.
We've got another game lined up.
Oh God. Okay. When I say lucky, you say dip. Lucky.
Dip.
Lucky.
Dip. Oh, diff.
We might hear a different jingle later, but this game is called Quiz Time.
Oh no!
So I've got a trio of questions for you that relate to sessions that you guys were in, and we're going to share those. So we're testing how much you were paying attention when you were hosting people, basically.
God. Okay.
This is sort of part of your post-diff feedback. So let's move on to question number one.
Ooh.
Okay.
How many years of research does the field of biomimicry draw upon?
Has that be 4 years?
4 years.
Full.
How do you know this?
No, I was wondering, does it have to be full or with like
Are you looking for
years
the
and
number
months?
of months and days as well? If you know that, Kinga, then feel free to drop that knowledge.
I think around
You think around,
4.
you're just figuring it out on the top of your head now.
She's pretty clever. Yeah, let's go with it. Let's go with that. 4?
4 years of research. We're going for 4. It's pretty close. It's actually 3.8 billion.
We meant in billions.
Yeah.
We meant in billions.
exactly.
Thank you for being specific about that. And obviously that was linked to a conversation you had, Emily, with Laura Stevens.
Yeah.
Biomimicry education.
Yeah, that was a great session. I really enjoyed that. And I do actually remember it really well. No, I don't know why everyone's laughing so much. Yeah, it was great. And we did actually need to put that into the billions. And it was really interesting. And you can catch up on it and DIF On Demand. And actually, biomimicry has been a really prominent topic in itself this year. And you can search by that if you're interested by the topic.
Because obviously we had earlier in the Cards Against Economy game, Nature's Future Technology, another biomimicry session, always a favourite at the DIF. Let's go on to question number 2.
Oh.
How many B Corps are there globally?
You should know
We
this.
just
I should know
mentioned
this.
Shah.
I think I know this.
2000
But you should say it first.
2000 and something?
2000 and something?
2,400.
2,400. Well, we did tweet that actually, and it wasn't you, Emily.
Oh, was it?
And they corrected and said it's very nearly 2,400. They expect to be at 2,400 B Corps. And B Corps are organisations that are set up legally differently from the regular organisations, so that profit value for shareholders is no longer the principle, and it allows them to generate better social and environmental incomes. Question number 3, last question. How many companies own patents on just about all of our seeds? This is something that I didn't know before the DIF. Kinga, I'm looking at you because you've hosted this session, so I'm hoping that you're going to jump on this.
Yeah, it is 6 at this moment.
Yeah, and tell us a bit about that session.
So we had a session about a company, the Open Source Seed Initiative. It's an American startup, and they are working on creating more and more seeds that are open source. So as this quiz question just said, there are 6 companies that at this moment own the patents, and they are also merging. So I think it's going to be 3 in a year. But they're trying to get away from that patented system of seeds and giving more freedom to the farmers by open sourcing seeds.
So open source typically associated with sort of tech and electronics applied to food and farming. Right, so we're at the end of our time together, but before you go, one session in this on-demand period from each of you that the audience must watch.
Oh God.
Yeah, I think, is it like a personal one that I really enjoyed?
Can be a personal one, Kinga, yeah.
That was Priya Mishra Ranjan. But what I really liked about his session, you just knew he was really a talented guy. He talked about second life of solar panels, and he had a really, really good story. And I think he is the person that we want at the DIF, is a guy from India, having done loads and loads of research. And yeah.
He works with Philips, right? I think I saw that session.
Yeah, Philips Lighting, yeah.
Emily?
I think mine, apart from my live studio session, obviously.
Apart from your own live studio session,
I can't
which one would you recommend?
I'd probably choose a session that my colleague Molly did, actually. It's called Beyond Blah Blah, and it's about sort of circular textiles materials industry. And it was really engaging. It's by Circular Economy, and it's an open session. And I just found it really engaging. It's a whole new industry that's sort of coming into this whole circular aspect of things. So, yeah, I found that really interesting.
Great. So that's Beyond Blah Blah. I believe it's run by Circular Economy. So if you're interested in the future of fashion, circular textiles, then that's a session to check out. We've got one more round of clips if you haven't seen enough of the DIF, to give you another flavour of some of the things you might have missed. And we're going to play that now.
The irony is, right, students go to university to get an education. Economic students worldwide have suddenly realised they've signed up for a degree, often paying huge fees and dedicating years of their life. And on day one, they realise that the syllabus they're being taught is stuck in the last century and it's not half fit to equip them for the challenges ahead. So the first job they have as students is to lobby their teachers to teach them something worth learning. It's an extraordinary moment. No other academic discipline has achieved this. So I think the economic students are a really important part of this change. And we need to work together as a movement, whether it's progressive professors who are working with them, the students, the businesses, the politicians, who all see we're desperate for a new economic narrative.
We are rapidly moving towards a world where more people in more places have the tools and the knowledge to fabricate things. And the key missing part of that, I believe, for that world of fabrication, which is rapidly moving in an accelerating direction, is what material palette we use. And so this talk is all about reinvigorating and tapping into the materials we have around us that are abundant, and thinking about how digital fabrication can make use of these ingredients to build fantastic things, and how pretty much anyone on the planet now is going to be able to have these tools at their fingertips, and what that means for the future of fabrication and the future of manufacturing and the future of the circular economy is incredibly exciting.
Personally think that businesses have a vital role in particularly marine plastic pollution, which is my subject. I think governments are are very important, and when they make a move, it's very big and very impactful. But they're notoriously slow, and I think there's always a danger of waiting for government and just thinking, okay, the government will sort it. I also think changing consumer perception and attitudes and patterns is notoriously slow. So I actually think it's fundamental for businesses to influence both of those factors. Businesses generally operate from quarter to quarter, so they can actually change very, very quickly, which we did. We eliminated, as you said earlier, 74% of our packaging, plastic from our packaging within a quarter. And that's a big change where there's will of the directors and there's will of the business. And actually what that can do is that can influence consumers, which we did. You know, as I said before, they didn't make that connection between the plastic in the hand and the plastic in the oceans until we did that. So suddenly we changed that, and perhaps we're taking those consumers on a journey. Perhaps they're then asking that question of other businesses and how they work. And then once you prove that we can do that within a business model, and actually our model has been hugely popular, it's been hugely beneficial to a business, and it's actually saved us money. Once you prove that, then it actually proves to government that actually perhaps they should change legislation.
Great. So we had, in that little reel, we had Kate Rayworth, How to Think Like a 21st Century Economist, talking about what she called a massive irony, that economist students, the first thing they're doing is actually challenging the syllabus that they're being taught. And that session's already been recommended once. I think it could be recommended several times during a session. It's a fantastic conversation with the Foundation's very own Jos Bleriot. The second clip is another session we've already recommended, which is Alicia Garmalevich's 3D printing, talking about what it means when people have the power to access materials and make their own products all around the world, new manufacturing technologies. And finally, we had Surf Dome's Adam Hall in a session called The End of Waste. He was joined by Auden Wicker, who's a sort of fashion journalist, and they were talking about the role of business in transforming and cutting out waste and designing out waste from the start. So, final two guests, the best saved for last.
It's the grand finale of the grand finale!
We've got the DIF's program manager, the person who leads us, Emma Fromberg, and we've got Colin Webster, education program manager, orchestrator of much that goes on in this room over the last 3 weeks. So great to have you both here.
It's great to be here, Seb.
I know
you're raising the stakes.
You've been here for the past 3 weeks, man.
I know that your highlight. I would ask you to describe your highlights, but I'm sure you'll just list the sessions where I was involved with you. So, I want to ask you a specific question about the clips we just heard. As we mentioned, it has been recommended. Kate's session was one of the most popular. Firstly, I assume you saw that one, but what makes Kate's story so powerful? Why is that narrative?
Well, Jules went and said everything that I was going to say.
That ruined it for you. I did see you making notes, actually. Did you have time to shift your story?
Drawing a big cross on the page. So I can only echo what she said, and I don't want to repeat all of that. But you know, what I really liked about her was, her whole story is great. But I really loved the part when she talked about being a mum at the school gates. She's got two twins. She's got twins, and shut up.
Is that your story, Colin?
This is the first, one of the only live studio sessions we ever do where there's a live studio audience as well, which is a different dynamic.
So speaking to mums at the school gates about her book, and that really made her a fully rounded human being, as opposed to someone who writes books and as it turns up on Radio 4 and so on.
Having to explain it at that basic level when you pick your kids up from school.
Yeah, I love that.
And Emma, we've had one designer on the sofa. We've got another designer by background, and you were lucky enough to interview Alicia.
Yeah.
What was it like having that conversation with Alicia about 3D printing? What would you pick out for people?
Okay, so Joe highlighted this one. I don't know what you did with the briefing, but they kind of highlighted
some common themes.
But
it's been a shambles, the organisation of this.
Yes, but I would like to add something to that, because what I thought was really interesting from that session is, she looks at natural materials, so materials that we see in nature, such as cellulose and chitin, and materials that are abundant in some local areas, and how you can kind of bridge that with digital fabrication, such as 3D printing and 3D printing-like technologies. And I think that she got her message across really well, and it was really accessible for everybody who just tuned in with quite low knowledge of 3D printing. And she made it quite interesting for also non-designers to watch.
So even if you don't know that much about 3D printing, you're
Yeah.
not a designer by background, that's a session we'd recommend for you to go and watch, and you'll be up to speed by the end of it.
Yeah,
or nearly
definitely.
up to speed. Colin, another thing that we've talked about quite a lot during the DIF, it's been a bit of a highlight, I think, what we call them internally the Geneva videos. I think that's because you spent some time in Geneva, basically. You're heavily involved in making these 3 videos. Tell us a little bit about them. What do we mean by Geneva videos?
Well, yes, Geneva, because we happened to shoot them in Geneva, and that's because one of the stars of the 3 videos is Walter Stahel, who lives in Geneva. So we started off with this idea of let's get a film about Walter Stahel, because he's a terrific guy and he's got this great idea, and we thought we could really help bring it to life if we edit it in such a way and used a bit of stock footage and some music. And that grew into, well, let's make a little series of these videos. And in the end, we ended up with Walter, with Martin Stuckty, who's the head of System IQ, who's worked closely with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for many years, and with our very own Ken Webster. So 3 films, they're each about 20 minutes long, and I see they're getting terrific views online. Each of them looks at the circular economy from a particular perspective, and is done in I think a terrific, rather beautiful
We've got a clip from one of those films lined up, just in case. We have been plugging these films quite a bit, but just in case any audience members haven't yet got a flavour of what they're like, we've got a clip lined up.
Let us see it
now.
I think we have to go back to the basics of what an economy is. It asks 3 questions, really. It asks us what to produce, how to produce it, and who gets the benefit. It's not only got 3 questions, it's got 3 main components. Every economy has flows of materials, flows of energy, and flows of information, particularly money. If you look at the textbook, they have an image almost of a central heating system. You've got 2 sectors to it, households and firms, capital and labour. Money flows between the 2. Wages are paid, goods are produced, income comes back into the firm. That's fairly simple. Add to that, the government takes taxes and pays money out. Add in banks as well. They're intermediaries to make sure that savings are productively put back into the economy as investment. It's very much a pipe work, and that's how many people understand it. On top of that, there's a sense of it's going to be in an equilibrium long term. Everything is going to be the best in all possible worlds if the economy runs efficiently. And that's almost the story of the economy. Make it efficient, let it run, it'll sort itself out as long as you don't get in the way.
Great, so you spent a lot of time on those Geneva films, fantastic work on those. But there was also, I believe, a filmmaker, Louis. I don't know if you want to just give a quick shout out to Louis for the fantastic job he's done on making those 3 short films.
I think you've just done it. Louis Hudson did a great job working on these 3 movies, and it's there for everyone to see if they look out for them.
Commercial for Louis.
No, he's a good guy.
He did a good job.
He did a good job. Yeah, he
Independent
had to work with
filmmaker.
Emma, so for goodness sake.
And Colin. We're going to play one more game. I don't know what's going to happen with this jingle.
One more game. I think
What is the jingle? Who did this jingle? Come on, Dave.
Cue music, Dave.
Did you cue this one?
When I say lucky, you say dip. Lucky.
Dip.
Lucky.
Dip. Of DIF. It's the lucky dip of DIF.
Oh.
I'll have a go at that, Seb.
Oh, you will, yeah. Right, I want you guys to select. There's a
Whose
few objects in
bag
this
is
bag.
that?
So it's a backpack we've got in the office. I'm just going to invite you, Colin, to take an object from this bag. Now, what we want you to do
So dodgy.
is, as you draw out the object, each object in some way is linked to a session that we've had at the DIF. So I want you to try and understand the connection.
Honest, have you seen these objects?
I know nothing. I know nothing about them.
You're lying.
Let's get on with the game then.
I haven't seen any of these objects, eh?
So can I pick out? Because it's a beautiful
pretty
bag.
weighty.
Why are you making also commercials for this backpack?
Let's have the first object out of the bag.
Ta-da! A screwdriver. So what's the game? What do we have to do here?
So we have selected these objects carefully.
Yeah.
That they are linked to one of our sessions we've had at the DIF.
Is this the cow?
Ah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just expand on that, just in case the audience didn't follow your logic there? Could you just expand on how you've made that connection?
Okay, so we already saw a short clip from Colleen from iFixit about what was the title of that session?
Right to repair a circular vision for electronics.
Yes. Definitely a must-watch, and also visible on the playlist with the recommended sessions from the DIF team.
And you're a big fan of the playlist, Emma. That's a good chance just to mention then. We have this section on the website called Playlist. Do you want to give a little explanation of what those are?
Yeah, I always like to talk about the playlist. No, we as we go, we curate sessions, and we try to pick and mix the sessions that are interesting to watch for specific target audiences. So we have a playlist section on the website. If you go to the top nav, you find that, and then you can just scroll through and see if there are, like, for example, the top 10 sessions under 10 minutes, and for a quick watch. And we also recently posted a new one also about positive stories about the future, which is really nice.
So that's another way to navigate the DIF on-demand period. So we've had a screwdriver, which linked iFixit. Yeah. I actually saw that session last night, and I happen to know that one of Kyle's points was that you can't just have one screwdriver if you were going to fix various objects. Like apparently there's thousands and thousands of different phones, and you need a different screwdriver for almost every single one. You hosted that session, Colin.
I did, and he said he said iFixit do pretty well out of this idea of using what's the word for it? Screw. Yeah, no. Redesign your own bespoke screws. There's a nice word for it.
Standardization.
No, the opposite of that.
Oh, so that's like unique.
Yes. Well, that's, like I said. No.
Let's just. We all know what we're
proprietary.
talking.
That's the word. Yes.
Oh, well done, you.
Proprietary screws. So, like a certain manufacturer of mobile phones and other electronics use proprietary screws, which means you can't get into them with this thing somehow. So you have to purchase special ones. They make special kits, and they also walk you through the process of how to take them apart.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's have another object out of this bag.
Okay.
More than one object. Emma, it's your turn.
It's an ugly backpack.
Great job on successfully.
Whose backpack is this? Is this somebody's backpack?
It's mine.
Okay, so what have we got there?
No, I want something else.
She is the DIF manager. It's fine.
We do need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Scrabble's. Ew, that's disgusting.
It's a sort of wind ball. Didn't hold it off quite long enough for the camera to get a good sight of it. What can we say about a ball related to the DIF?
Well, it's plastic.
You don't want
There's
to
been
touch it.
several sort of plastic sessions about the problem of plastic in our oceans, for example. It's also, I am going to touch it because I know it's a ball. You could say, if you squeeze it right, it throbs. So bear with me.
Colin.
Catch. So it's related to the fact that we have these interactive graphics on the DIF. These interactive graphics are a place where we make the graphic and we ask questions on it, and an audience can join in with a conversation. And Emma and I did an award-winning session.
We did a good session.
We
got good feedback from our own Colin Kelly, who gives us feedback daily on sessions that we host.
And he might well be watching right now. Hello, Colin.
Hi, Colin.
So yeah, that's a chance to interact with audiences. Of course, the DIF is all about audience interaction, and that's just one of many ways in which we can do that.
So these graphics are like places you go and there's some sort of stimulus and people are posting their comments, and anyone can post on them?
Yeah.
And so they're
but
still available.
Only on desktop. Like if you're on your mobile phone, you cannot see it. That's
but they're going to be available through. They're going to be available throughout the on-demand period.
Yes.
So we can continue the
and
conversation.
there is one session with an interactive graphic that is particularly good. That's the get interacto with the circular economy with
Yes.
Colin and me. Yeah.
Great. So if you want to see, if you've enjoyed this tandem so far in this section of the event, there's another whole 45 minutes available on the schedule for more of the same. Right, let's have another object out of this bag.
Okay.
I'm conscious that there is quite a big item in there. You seem to be deliberately...
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a clock.
It is a clock.
Okay, so we've got a clock.
Did you get that somewhere from the kitchen or something?
Stolen from the wall. So what's the clock all about then? I wonder...
Good job.
Yeah, well done.
It's just the speed at which my brain works. I mean, it's showing time, and the time appears to be a-changing, which makes me think of Bob Dylan.
I know where you're going with this,
yes.
Colin.
And I spin off to Jonathan Taplin, who was once his tour manager.
Jonathan Taplin, author of the book Move Fast and Break Things, was indeed the tour manager of Bob Dylan in the 1960s.
But does it have anything to do with the content of his session? Or are you just
Well, very good question, Emma. I'm really pleased you raised that issue. He also, incidentally, helped produce the film Mean Streets with Michael Scorsese. And actually, his background of working with people like Bob Dylan is really what led him to author the book Move Fast and Break Things, which is sort of critique of monopolization of the digital economy. He names specifically Facebook, Amazon and Google, but it's a look at the way in which that economy is working, how fast it's developed, and in particular his angle on it is the effect on people in creative industries like music. So that's definitely, I'd describe it as a spicy session, definitely one to watch
It was really,
if you want to be provoked.
Yeah, he was criticizing YouTube, right? Yeah.
One of the things he did, yeah.
It was challenging, it was disruptive, it was a quintessential DIF session.
Thought-provoking.
Yeah.
A really good host as well.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah.
Couple more objects left.
Oh,
Come on,
are
Emma,
we
get in
done
there.
with this?
This
But I
tortured,
didn't want this like
tortured game of Sebs. Let's get through it.
But is this, okay, I don't know what this is. Oh, this is Velcro.
Yes.
Okay, you do know what it is. Yeah. Can you just hold it up just so audience at home can see it? Why have we put Velcro in this bag?
I don't know. I wish I could pick something up. I don't know. Colin? You already knew what was in that bag. I was the only one that didn't know that. So you just tell them.
I wonder if, well, Velcro, as we all know, is an innovation that's inspired by nature, isn't it? Is it burrs that someone once noticed were sticking to his trouser leg as he walked through a forest or something like
on
that?
your dog. Yeah.
On your dog.
Yeah.
I don't know what the story was, but yeah, either
Yeah.
one way or the other, someone had noticed this, that nature had a way of hooking on and resiliently staying stuck. And as a result, some investigation was gone into, and no doubt this product was designed somewhere
So this
down that
speaks
route.
to a theme that's run throughout the DIF, which is this idea of nature being an inspiration for design solutions. And we spoke a bit with Kinga earlier about the future of design, and I think very common theme that nature is a source of inspiration.
Yeah, but also a source of materials, because we also saw that in multiple sessions. I was also hosting an open session about the future of materials, and they also see that there is much more research being done in natural materials, and that like niche is growing immensely. Yeah.
That was the future of materials in the circular economy with the guys from KEA Material Design Lab in Copenhagen.
Yes.
Very much worth catching up on.
There was a session last night about fungus and a brilliant new startup idea. I believe got some airtime during that, so one to look out for.
We might. Do we have any more objects left in that bag, Colin? Can you just confirm
I don't know.
that the game
Let's have a
is
look.
either open or closed?
Look, there's a Mars bar.
Yeah, but
A
that
Mars
was just
bar.
snack box leftovers.
That's just fallen in there.
Someone's stolen it from the DIF snack box. We've all put on, I don't know how many pounds of weight during the DIF because we've been gorging ourselves on the various treats that have been made available throughout these 3 weeks as a team. I think perhaps the Mars bar is in there to make reference to is it called Generation Space?
Generation Space, a guide, Colin.
Yeah. If you type in Exeter and space.
That introduction. Are we going to watch the introduction? There was.
We're not going to watch it. It does. I mean, we have universities from various parts of the world contributing to the DIF, which is a real positive. And I think. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Emma, specifically, but University of Exeter's session was one example of a number of sessions they contributed on various topics. And this one, I think, was playfully about what would our future space travellers need to know as they go out exploring space, and how the circular economy relates to that.
And I liked it. It was like 9 minutes long. It
Very
features
short, yeah.
Chris Grantham from IDEO. It features people from IKEA, I saw. And some of our favourites from Exeter. We work with Exeter. And it was MBA students, I think, who were given the challenge of saying, imagine you're on a spacecraft that's going to travel for 1,000 years and it's got 1,000 people on it. I think that was the setup. And they had to design what that craft would be like and what the systems inside that ship would be like as well. And one thing I liked about it, to go back to that collaboration point, is they make all their worksheets downloadable so anyone can run that class or those set of activities.
Definitely want to check out Generation Space, a guide. Is the bag empty, Colin?
Yeah, the bag is empty.
The bag is empty, which brings the end of the game Lucky Dip of Diff. Also, it's over. It also brings the end of this session. I think there's a few thank yous in order. Thank you firstly to the audience for your fantastic questions and contributions throughout the DIF, and for joining us for these 3 weeks and helping us to make it a better event every single year. I want to give a shout out to the collaborators of the Disruptive Innovation Festival. You'll see them on the homepage. We work with I guess a vastly innovative group of organisations who help us to make the DIF what it is. I also want to say thanks to all of the DIF hosts, various hosts from the DIF team, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, our host of open sessions who have worked so hard over these last 3 weeks. And of course, none of this session itself wouldn't be possible without the fantastic work of Skinny Mammoth, our team of very patient producers, filmers, audio specialists. So a big round of applause to Skinny Mammoth for making the DIF what it is. So don't forget that the DIF, although this is the final live session of the DIF is available on demand, but only for a limited period of time. And perhaps the one thing to close on, if I go back to Colin and Emma here, is one session each that the audience has to catch up on.
Emma.
Okay, so I know the topic of the session, but I forgot the title. But the one with the basic income.
Basic income and the circular economy. The future basic income and the circular economy.
How come? Yeah, I think that.
That was took place yesterday. Well, anyway, it was a great session with Paul Anker, wasn't it?
Yes, and it was a really good open session where they made it really accessible to understand.
Connecting two very big concepts.
Yeah.
So basic income and the circular economy.
And you?
And Colin.
Well,
bought yourself a couple of minutes.
I did, and I didn't want to mention one that we've seen or talked about already, but I'm half going to.
It's fine. If it's a great session, we want to hear about it.
Yeah, you showed us a clip of David Weinberger, how humans can thrive when machines are smarter than us. You and I interviewed him, and I think we were both a little bit insecure about this.
How intelligent he was.
Yes. And it turned out I was way more intelligent than him, so it was fine. No, he was a terrific guest and a very sharp fella, and a lot of the philosophical points and the ethical points that he raised, I think, had me thinking for some time.
Yes, and I think it's important to say that particular clip showed, I guess, him talking about some of the potential negative effects, but he had a very balanced viewpoint, which definitely wanted to catch up on.
Yeah.
Well, that is the end of the DIF, the live DIF. Make sure you watch those sessions on DIF On Demand. Make sure you take on all the recommendations that you've received during the last hour, and we hope to see you continuing to visit the website, continue using #ThinkDiff and posting comments and questions on those interactive graphics and on the session pages. And we hope to see you next year at the DIF.